Hey, good to be here.
Thank you for taking the time in your busy schedule. You're a very busy man, as we know, to be part of this podcast. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I want to know more about your journey, which I find extremely unique and interesting. I'm inspired by what you're doing. You started, I believe, as an analyst. You're now, up to today, you're a full-time demand gen director for Rillion.
Yep,
Pronounce it properly, right?
yep.
And you are I would call it a micro-SaaS founder called Fibbler, as we know. But we're going to dig into this, but I wanted to open up with asking you like a very open question. I've done that before. Like, as a marketer right now, looking at the macro view of everything, what's top of mind for you?
Yeah, good question. I think trying to stand out generally is top of mind for me. I mean, everything is becoming more and more the sea of sameness, right? How can I, both as a person, but as a brand and so on, how can I stand out with my ideas and my thoughts and everything? So really, I've been thinking about this for a long time, but it's even more important now, I think. Like, how can you be creative? How can you stand out when everyone is trying to stand out? What do you do that the others don't do in marketing? So I think that's
Yeah.
and it's also what makes marketing interesting, right? You have it's such a potential to become the company everyone wants to follow, right? But it's also extremely hard.
So hard. That's well said. And it's interesting coming from someone who doesn't have a marketing degree, right? If I'm not mistaken.
No,
So that,
exactly. I'm coming from, I studied economics and statistics, right? And I
Mm.
I had no ambition of pursuing like a career in marketing. I was 100% going into investment banking at that point. But by chance, I started out as an analyst, and the next job after that became a marketing gig where I kind of was an analyst at a marketing team. And when
Mm.
someone suddenly quit, they needed someone to do various marketing tasks, and that's how it got started. Lucky coincidence, but I'm really happy that it happened that way, because I also believe that you also have other skills that you get from other degrees and from other things are really valuable in
Agree.
marketing.
Yeah, for sure. And what have you, because you've been big on, and that's how I discovered you and started following your journey. You've been extremely effective at building an audience around you. And I mean, a community, I should call it, because it's not just an audience. People participate in the conversation, they comment. You're very active in responding. Has this been a key lever for you in then building and growing Fibbler where it is today?
Yeah, 100%. I'm not sure we would have taken off without it, to be honest. I mean,
Mm,
everybody can build a product these days, but distributing
yeah.
it and having trust with people in your audience, that's hard. I've been posting on LinkedIn for at least 4 years now. And in the beginning, it was mostly me sharing, these are the learnings I'm getting from testing this. And then it has kind of gradually increased as I've gotten more knowledge, but also, when I now start to build things that I can actually sell to my audience, I already have this kind of trust built up. We've been talking virtually for years, right? And now I can
Mm,
say, okay, I built this thing that it solved a really big pain for me, and maybe it will
mm,
for you too. But I'm still very conscious of not just pitching all the time. I still want things to
yeah, you're
share
good at this.
value.
Yeah,
Um,
you're extremely good at this. And you have to, what's interesting is you have to balance your full-time job presence and
yep.
your founder presence. So but they don't conflict into each other. We can tell it's very flawless. You're clear when it's Adam in your full-time job and you're a SaaS founder. But what do you find the most difficult? Because people start associating you with your company or your full-time job. So it's a very balancing act, right?
No, it is, of course, a balancing act. And people in my company, of course, see me more than they see regular people, right? Because I post almost every day. So, yeah, so it's still important to me to, of course, explain where I put my hours as well, right?
True.
Fibbler has been a lot of late nights and weekends and early mornings. And I don't think people typically see that, right? So I think it's important to try, but I also think it's important, like for any employee out there, to like having a side hustle, that this has been truly the biggest learning opportunity I've ever had. And I really urge anyone to start something. It can be like you have done here with a podcast, right?
Yeah.
The amount of learnings you get from just launching something, marketing it, branding it. I've never experienced that at a company, to be honest.
I agree with you. And it's something that you always had this in your DNA, right? Because you had your podcast prior to that. Can you tell us a little bit more about your podcast?
I mean, that was kind of how it started. After I started posting on LinkedIn, I quickly figured out that, okay, I want to learn more from these people. So I started a podcast. Demand generation had just, blown up as a concept. I was really hooked into that. So I started a podcast around that. And of course, I invited a lot of demand gen people into that and started interviewing them. So I think we got to 35 episodes or so before I sold that one. And I mean, so many learnings, both from interviewing people, but also from just building it up, editing, as you said. It's it's so good. I also built a community on the backbone of that podcast. And I think that was kind of how the kind of entrepreneurial journey started as well, right? To what now is Fibbler.
Yeah. And do you come from an entrepreneurial family? Is this something that comes?
No, 100% not. I mean, my parents have been working for 40 years in the same job, right? My father is a carpenter, so it's very and I'm terrible with anything practical, so I had to go the theoretical route, right? So no, I don't. But I don't know. It's just I have this ever sense of never being satisfied in me, which is both good and bad, I think. So I'm very much a starter of things. I have a hard time when I just have to keep rolling, so to say. I always want to take the next step, which is good in entrepreneurship and when you're starting something, because you're often really efficient and you're good at making things quick and getting things out, but you're probably worse at making sure things are consistent and you always deliver on time and so on. So it's blessing in disguise, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. And so back to Fibbler. So you have a co-founder?
Yeah, I have a co-founder that also lives here very close to me. So we're close friends even before we started this journey, right?
Oh,
but
nice.
He's the technical programmer. So it has been, without him, we would never have built this. I only had the idea, right? But he is the one that could actually build it.
Okay, that's good. But it came out of frustration from your end, right? In your past role? Because I watched an episode from another podcast you were on recently. Sorry, I can't remember the name, but you mentioned that building Fibbler was something that you wanted first for your own needs.
100%.
Tell us more.
I mean, it was at my previous company with my current CMO, actually, that I'm still working for. I owned the entire paid channels at that point. So I worked a lot with LinkedIn ads. We spent a lot of money there, but it was really hard to kind of tie those efforts to revenue and pipeline like we all want to do in marketing, right? So I felt that there had to be something. I did it all manually at that point because I think there's a benchmark. It's around 0.4% or something like that of people on LinkedIn that actually click on ads, right? So all of these other 99.6%, how we are obviously impacting them in some regard. Like that's advertising. They are seeing us, they are remembering us, and eventually when they have an issue, they are probably reaching out. Which is why we have all of these sources like direct traffic, organic search for their brand name. They are hearing about you from some place. And that was my initial spark. So how can I tie those people from LinkedIn with the people, with the companies that we have in our CRM? So I did that for months at that company, but manually. So I pulled out the Excel list and just mashed it all together. So that was kind
from
of the
LinkedIn
initial
API.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay.
And then I realized that obviously it's APIs here that can be automated. So that was kind of how it got started. But from that moment, it took a year almost until we had a MVP to get out. Because when you never worked with something like that before, it's tricky.
And did you use AI to help you build the engine or the platform itself?
I would say this was kind of before the AI boom, so to say. So, I mean, we would probably have been faster now if we started out. So no, I think my co-founder, he knows very little about marketing. Obviously, he's a programmer. So he had to really deep dive into these API documentations and try to figure out what could be done here.
Wow.
It has been
Sorry.
trial and error, basically.
Yeah. That's amazing. So you just think of someone wanting to start their own SaaS right now or micro-SaaS.
Yeah.
With the world in which we live in now and all the AI tools that can support us, it's unbelievable, right?
Yeah, it's
You can
crazy.
get to MVP within a weekend.
Yeah, it's both. I mean, I guess it's both good and bad, because the good thing about, things taking a bit longer time is that you actually iterate into something pretty good at the MVP point. Now you can launch something MVP that will work probably pretty bad, but you can still get the idea out, which I still think that is good. But I mean, when we launched our MVP, we could pretty quickly take on customers and more customers because it was already working. We had already been working with beta people and so on. So I guess it's good and bad.
Yeah. And it's tougher to cut through the noise, right? Because now, I mean, the velocity at which you can launch a new platform or a tool is totally crazy. So we're inundated by offers, and same with LinkedIn, right? The organic game has changed completely. You've lived it. So frustration with proving, if I go back to your point, proving return on investment, which is almost our mission in marketing. Like we do two marketings, right? We do marketing externally and marketing internally.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a never ending situation where we always have to explain everything and making sure everyone understands how is this going to impact revenue at the end of the day, right?
Exactly.
But sales doesn't have to do that.
Exactly. No, and I think it's funny, right? When I now do marketing for my own startup as well, I generally don't care about measurement that much. I care about how is this engaging with the audience, because then I believe that it will truly impact bottom line. But when you are working at a company and have stakeholders, either a board or like an executive team, as a marketeer, you have to be able to prove certain things. That's just how it is. You are not going to go far if you don't take any effort in doing so.
But to your point, I think we went too far in that road of over the last few years. It's all about, okay, if you're not generating pipeline or revenue and you can't prove it in a direct attribution way, you're out of you're out of here. That's why I'll never work with companies that don't have this philosophy of holistic, looking at things in a more complete way, because it's not a one-to-one. We're not a gum machine, right?
No, and I think it's so funny. Like I've worked for a couple of, VC-backed companies at this point, and every time when you get their kind of scoring framework to you, it's always the same traditional by channel. You have your MQLs, your SQLs, your deals. Like by channel, how much did we spend? How can we spend more here to increase? Like it's still very traditional like that, right? And then
very much.
Then it's impossible for us as marketeers sometimes to just come there and I'm not going to do this.
No, exactly. It's like changing the whole philosophy of the company. But I think on a positive note, we are evolving as a community. The business community is evolving. At least the forward-looking, the progressive companies changing slowly but surely. But I'm very curious about Fibbler. In all transparency, I've never been inside your platform. I've seen you doing snippets of demo here and there. Not sure if you're comfortable with that, but would you be okay to share your screen and
I can share.
Do a quick walkthrough.
I can share a quick minute or so of the
that
platform.
Would be great.
Just to give you an idea.
Awesome.
But I mean, what I talked about before, right? We are obviously utilizing the data that you're getting from the APIs in LinkedIn. So it's basically the same data that you have there. Seeing the companies that you are advertising towards, seeing their paid engagement. You can also see organic engagement. So if they have visited your company page and company posts and so on. But pretty importantly, you can kind of deep dive into specific companies. So you can see, okay, this specific company during these last 90 days, as an example, has seen all of these freaking campaigns. And in these specific campaigns, you can also see how engaged have they been. I mean, this is critical information to have, as you can use like intent signals for your sales team, right? If it's a product ad and they are highly engaged, But what's most important in our platform is still what we call like influence pipeline and influence revenue. And this is basically that, we are looking at the create date for a deal or an opportunity in your CRM. And then we are looking at, okay, before that point, have they had X amounts of impressions, both paid and organic, regardless of the conversion source. So we don't care if they came from direct or if they came from searching for your brand, right? We only want to show here that LinkedIn played a part in that journey. And I think that's important also to note, like, it's not about credit here. It's more about trends. Can we see that the money we spend on LinkedIn ads are actually touching deals and won deals, obviously, that you can see here to the right, that are coming into the CRM.
Correct.
So that's really the basics of it. And then, we're obviously looking at very specifics here into the deals and in the CRM and so on. So and then there's a lot of other things, but this is really the most important part of Fibbler, I would say.
So how do you adapt then to plays like deal acceleration, where really it's already people who know you are likely to be engaged with your company? Is this something you can?
Yeah. Generally we work with what we call either signals, or we sync the data to the CRM. But generally we work with signals. We say that, okay, in this specific campaign, we want to have all the companies that have very high engagement. We want to send them to either maybe a Slack channel to our BDR team, or we want to send them to Clay, and there we want to enrich them with ICP contacts and so on. So that's like the typical use case that a user does in Fibbler. So both use it for attribution purposes, but also typically use it for intent signals for sales. And there, you have to be smart there as well, right? Maybe you don't want to send companies that have engaged once with your ad, right? Maybe you want them to, have high engagement in the last 30 or 60 days maybe, because that actually means that they might remember you when you call or when you email, right?
Right. And what you call high engagement, is this something that I can adjust based on what I think is high engagement, or it's something that comes by default in your platform?
Yeah, it's basically the same metric as LinkedIn has on their side. So it's a metric derived from both paid and organic. So it's looking at everything they're doing around your brand, paid and organic on LinkedIn at this date range, and then deriving it from that. So if you have a lot of impressions and lower on the engagement side, that one will be low. But if you have, a large amount of engagements and lower amount of impressions, it will be higher. So it's the relative ratio, more or less.
Yeah.
So that's what a lot of companies do. Obviously we integrate this data to Salesforce and HubSpot. So a lot of companies just send all the data in there, and then they on their own do the reporting and everything in there. So we're more of a middleman for that.
I see. And who gets the most? Thank you for the runaround of the platform. That's great. But who do you find gets the most value out of your platform in terms of ICP?
Yeah, it's in the beginning, of course, I think it was mostly people like myself, like demand gen people, performance marketeers, head of marketings, people that wanted to quickly and affordable being able to prove that their LinkedIn ads are impacting the bottom line. But then it has actually turned now into also sales teams, right? So we have a lot of sales agencies that are actually using us in their workflows. So they are creating these workflows for clients that they are including Fibbler in as part of that. And I would say like agencies and freelancers in general also love something like this, right? It's easy to show your clients how you're impacting their bottom line instead of being in their CRM all the time, which is tricky. But I've always built this product for individual marketers like myself. In the beginning, I wanted individual marketers to be able to swipe their own card and then say to their boss, right, I want this tool. So that is what it will always continue to be, right? I never want to go freaking up market or anything like that. I want to sell to myself.
That's great. That's a good way of putting it. You want to sell to yourself. What do you see the platform evolving into next?
Yeah, it's a good point. Obviously now in the beginning, we've focused only on LinkedIn ads, but I definitely see this we're going to add other channels naturally. As a first step, we are going to look at Google Ads as a channel. It's probably the channel that correlate most with LinkedIn. You see all of these ads on LinkedIn, And at the time where you're interested, you will probably Google search for their brand name and then end up in the CRM, right? So I think it will be really valuable to see how those channels interact with each other in kind of a customer journey like way. So that is definitely next.
What do you find the most difficult in growing your own company?
I mean, expectations, I believe. Some months, you're growing extremely fast. The next month it can jump to you have really high churn, and the next month again you're growing slow. So it's non-consistent in a way when you're growing a company, when you're in a startup basically. So you have to stay cool. Like you have to be, it's this S curve, right? With like growth will come, but it will also decrease, and then it will come, and then it will decrease. So in these crisis moments, you always have to tell yourself, right, that yes, we will get out of this one too, but sometimes it's hard to do that, I think.
Yeah. Like crypto, right? You have to look long term.
Exactly, like crypto.
Okay, I'd like to change the rhythm if you don't mind and ask you a few rapid fire questions. I have a lot of fun with my earlier guest, and I think it would be fun with you as well.
Yep.
First one, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
What was your top recent book or podcast that you believe has had the most impact even today in how you build your company and how you execute?
It's more for inspiration, I would say, but it's called Shoe Dog. It's a book. It's by the creator of Nike. That it has definitely been a big inspiration in being able to do something from scratch, right? Not so much business advice, but just an inspiring journey.
Interesting. What's your other go-to tool, other than Fibbler, of course, that you use?
I would say Canva.
Canva.
I've been using Canva for years. It's so good.
Yeah, it is amazing. Have you created your logo for Fibbler, your persona?
No, that is not created
mascot,
there.
the mascot. You didn't create the mascot?
No, that's from a designer friend, but yeah.
It's nice. I believe in the comeback of mascot. A marketing myth. I think I can almost hear what you're going to say, but a marketing myth you wish ever would die.
But I think that you need to measure everything is a marketing myth for sure.
On LinkedIn, is there someone that inspires you in terms of content style and the way you're...
Yeah, but there are a lot of people, of course, over the years that have inspired me in various ways. But I think lately, or at least during the last year, a guy called Enzo Avigo he was the previous CEO at a company called June that now got acquired by a company called Amplitude. But I think he has been very transparently writing about their journey, both good and bad. And I think he has done it in a very authentic way, which is really good. So I've really taken a lot of pointers from how he does that into my own work.
That's interesting. What gets your creative juice going outside of work? Like what activity do you do, or a passion project or something that you do outside of work that makes your creativity going?
I don't know about creativity, but I'm a golfer, so I have to be out on the course when I can. And it's probably the place I'm least creative because I'm able to pretty much shut down at the golf course, which I love because it's very rare.
Yeah, it's kind of a meditation, right? For me, It's swimming. I love swimming. Yep. It's like I'm going back in the womb of my mom. I don't know.
Exactly.
Awesome. That's awesome. So far, you mentioned, just making a stop on the rapid fire question, but you mentioned about traction earlier and disappointment and how you manage this as a founder. But I can only imagine having a full-time job, being a dad, and being a SaaS founder. How do you find the balance there? Because
I think that has also helped me a little bit, right? Because I think I early on had to accept that I can only do so much. I have a son that is 4 and a little girl that is 1.
Wow.
So, it takes a lot of time. My spouse and partner also works full time, right, at the ER here. So yeah, I think acceptance has been key. Like I can only do so much. I want to spend time with them. Like accepting that, okay, this feature, we're not going to be able to launch it this month. So be it.
Right.
But it has also helped that my co-founder, he is working full time, obviously, with Fibbler, and he's more critical than I am in the sense of making sure the platform works and that we're developing it and so on. I'm more the visionary in that sense, right? And
For
so
sure.
without that, I don't think it would have worked the same. Like he has also been able to handle a lot of the support requests. I mean, there's so much admin that goes into like having
It
a
must be.
startup or a company or anything. Like it's crazy. You don't really count on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. And sometimes you feel like you're holding two wires together and trying to keep them plugged in.
But I mean, also like at some part, it's also a bit unsustainable, right? So it is
Yeah.
hard. I wouldn't recommend it maybe to anyone. But I also think like we started this, I didn't know the traction we would have early on. I mean, it could have taken 2 years to get to this point that we are now. Who knows? So it's also a bit of luck in that sense.
So you had to adapt very quickly
Yes. I
because you had
mean,
no choice. Things were just going fast, right?
exactly. I mean, we launched the product right before last summer, I believe. And I mean, we immediately picked up customers month over month and grew really fast in the beginning. So, I mean, I think we grew to 100 paying customers in like this first 6 months at that point. So it was like a
Mm.
lot of things. We needed to make sure the servers were working, everything like that. In the beginning, it doesn't matter because you're not so many people. And that's even now, right? When we're scaling even more, we need to make sure that we can cope.
For
Yeah.
sure. I know what you need. You need an AI SDR like tomorrow.
That is the solution to everything. I knew it.
That's the solution to everything. So for someone, that's a good way of closing. For someone that is thinking of, and I've been thinking about it, of launching their own SaaS tool, like their own product, online product of any kind, but especially a SaaS, micro SaaS like yours, I think is very demanding. What would you say are a few advice that you can give to anyone who has a full-time job or is fractional like I am?
I think the key, like most likely, you will not innovate that much. I mean, most products these days are fairly similar. It's really hard to be completely unique. But what you can do is find a unique place in the market to be. Like if I take myself as an example and Fibbler, there are companies doing very similar things to what we are doing, but they are serving a different market, typically the
Mm,
enterprise and the mid-market. So what we found this segment, the SMB market, that was very unserved from anyone. So I think it's about, definitely try to be unique if you can, but it's very hard. Try to be
yeah.
unique in a niche. I think that's key, right? Because there are so many enterprise platforms out there that are serving enterprise customers. You can probably pick a small feature that they do and serve to SMB customers, right? Because they don't need all of that. So I would say that is my best tip.
And that's a very good point. I can see where you're going with this. I know other tools who are doing similar things, but it's a feature of their platform, right?
Exactly. It's just a feature, right?
Yep.
And that's the beauty of micro-SaaS, right? You can kind of create a full tool out of others' features, right? But you also bring a completely different price point. Of course, you have to take the low end of the market, which I think is fine and also fun because then you can keep your business very efficient and scalable. If you have if the goal is to grow a company to a unicorn and have thousands of employees, that won't work, right? But
No,
if the goal is to do something that you can sustain you and your family financially, great way.
I agree. Yeah, that's amazing. Good advice. Thank you. And also to your point earlier, accept that things won't go as you expect them to be going.
Yeah, I mean, and that's hard also, right? When you suddenly depend on money coming through the door from your SaaS or from your
Mm,
service or whatever you're doing, then it's going to be even more stressful, right? Because then
yeah,
it's actually impacting people in your life, not only yourself.
exactly.
Um,
Yeah. It's not for
I think
everyone, that's for sure.
no, and I think we also need to have respect for that, right? Because I'm so impressed by everyone that's, going fractional, doing their own thing, starting SaaS businesses, because they're putting a lot on the line often, and it's not easy. It's really hard. And I think a lot of people get shocked about how hard it is also to, you often on LinkedIn, you only see the positive stories,
Oh,
right? You only see the ones that have grew 1,000% in the last year, and you never see the failures, which is many because they never show up there.
yeah, I agree. And you are very open in sharing the journey yourself, which is something I find so authentic. And at the end of the day, we establish a different relationship with you as a reader on
Yeah.
LinkedIn. We can, w- w- it's a different vibe than I'm the king, everything's going well, and my company is going to be running with AI 100% next week, right?
Yeah. No, exactly. And I guess this depends on just what kind of brand and what kind of company you want to build, right? I'm also a
True.
Swede, right? So we're pretty laid back and we're not really at the fore. And I mean, it can be both good and bad. Sometimes it's good to be the person that is really in the middle stage of the room, right?
That's true. Like Canadians. We
Exactly.
understand each other very well, Canadians and Swedish.
Yeah.
Adam, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the insights, for your generosity on this podcast and off the podcast. You are really an example for the next generation. You know, I think of, as I age, I don't know, I'm getting some wisdom. I think of what is the next generation going to do? How can we give them good role models, micro role models? I mean, you're not on the public speaking tour and whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe one day, but I think you are a superb example of this, where if we have more Adam in the world, I think this world is going to be a better place. So thank you.
Thank you. That's very kind. Good to be here. It's really, really fantastic chat.
Thank you.